Chapter 2, Chicago. Our new father's name was Emilio. He was a short man with a light complexion and light brown hair. I never got to know much about him. I heard he had children from a previous marriage. Other than that, Emilio was a total mystery. My mother must have been pregnant months before she and Emilio were married. Shortly after we moved out of the village, she gave birth to a baby girl. I now had 3 sisters. Soon after the birth of their daughter, Emilio moved the family to the United States. The first couple of years in the States were great. We lived in Chicago, the Windy City, the city of broad shoulders, and all that other bullshit. I was going on 7 years old when we first came to Chicago. I was very curious about everything that surrounded me. How fascinating were the things in this great city, so different, so new. I remember sitting in the back porch of our very first apartment in Chicago and getting excited about the silver and green train going on the elevated tracks located about a half block away. I dreamed of someday riding that big green machine that decorated the skylight. People were everywhere in Chicago. They socialized at all times of the day. This city was alive. In Puerto Rico, the nearest neighbors were a quarter mile away, and they were usually relatives. In Chicago, strangers lived next to, above, and below each other. Oh, and the miracle of indoor plumbing. What a difference there was in lifestyle and scenery. I fell in love with Chicago. I had trouble learning English, but other than that, I was in heaven. At school, I was placed in a preschool setting because of my language barrier. It wasn't so bad. At almost 7 years old, I was the biggest kid in class, and I got to go home at noon. I discovered that I had to attend school only in the morning after spending half the afternoon searching for the go-home room on my first day. If it hadn't been for a Spanish-speaking teacher that I ran into that day, I might still be wandering the hallways. We lived on the south side of the city, around 26th Street. It was a predominantly Mexican neighborhood. For the most part, they weren't very friendly to Puerto Ricans. Their favorite chant was, "Arriba Mexico, abajo Puerto Rico." Up with Mexico, down with Puerto Rico. I think their dislike of Puerto Ricans stemmed from the fact that while we were citizens of the United States at birth, they had to literally sneak into this country. But that seemed to be predominantly an adult attitude. The kids just didn't seem to care. I made friends with kids who spoke Spanish as fluently as they did English. That helped my sisters and me learn English faster. At home, Emilio's attitude towards us changed as his daughter got older. In short, he became an asshole. He would do things like padlock the refrigerator so that only his daughter could drink milk. He would hang a box of crackers from a rope high on the ceiling so that we couldn't have any. All of his anger was taken out on us. Whether it was money problems, the baby crying, or an itch he couldn't scratch, we were beaten for it. Why my mother let him do these things, I'll never know. But I'm sure it had a lot to do with avoiding my stepfather's anger. By the time I was 8, the only thing my 2 sisters and I had to look forward to was going to school. We were pretty much confined to our bedroom in order to avoid Emilio's wrath. We went outside only when Emilio wasn't around, which was usually when we were at school. Then Emilio lost his job. I didn't know what he did for a living to begin with, but during this period he was always at home. With him there all the time, the ranting and raving was constant. Then, suddenly, for no apparent reason, Emilio started leaving the house early and would not come back home until late at night. With Emilio not around, our childhood became a joy again. The city, the snow, our new friends, my sisters, and I loved every minute of it. Meanwhile, Emilio got himself into some sort of trouble trying to scam the Social Security Administration. The rumor was that the FBI had picked him up for questioning, and just like that, Emilio disappeared. No goodbyes, no I'll be back. He just left and never returned. My mother, a very attractive woman and somewhat ignorant for a woman of her experience, was alone with 4 kids and on welfare. My mother's mother didn't let her go to school, so she couldn't learn to be something other than somebody's housewife. Now, here she was in the land of opportunity. Illiterate, only survival skills she knew, she found another man. His name was Pedro. He was from the north side of the city, where most of Chicago's Puerto Ricans lived. Pedro was 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighed 350 pounds, and was fat, toothless, stinky, and loud. A truly trifling individual. Pedro had this habit of cleaning his snot on his t-shirt, sometimes even blowing his nose onto it, then walking around like that. Sounds like Lencho. The man rarely bad. Pedro was a very successful illegal lottery dealer. He bought a brand new car almost every year and carried a large amount of cash on him at all times. My mother looked like a frail toothpick next to Pedro. I don't think it was any secret that the only thing my mother saw in Pedro was his money. It's how she chose to provide for her children. After a couple of months of that, we all moved to the north side. Pedro's son Hector was a youngster, a taller version of his father. He was 23 years old, 6 feet, 3 inches tall, and weighed 400 pounds. Damn. He was a sports fanatic and had a particular taste for big flashy cars. An orange Cadillac Coupe de Ville with a white top, or a powder blue Lincoln Mark V. These were the kinds of cars Hector would drive. He had the personality of a kid. Hector enjoyed playing practical jokes on people and had a knack for making people laugh. Like his father, Hector also dabbled in the illegal lottery. Unlike his father, Hector was also a drug dealer. Although he himself didn't drink, smoke, or use any kind of drugs, he was always surrounded by junkies. Hector sold heroin. His girlfriend, Missy, a junkie, was a tiny woman whose teeth had rotted away because of her craving for sweets. Missy's sister, Jenny, was also a junkie. In fact, just about everyone who hung around Hector was a junkie, including his previous girlfriend, the mother of his child, his sister-in-law, and her boyfriend. Hector enjoyed their company. They worshipped him. They did anything he wanted at his command. It wasn't until we moved that I now realized how big and racially diverse Chicago was. So many worlds collided with each other on the way north from the Mexican area of 18th Street and Western Avenue toward the Puerto Rican area at Western and Potomac Street. We went past an African American neighborhood, then through Polish and Italian areas. I saw railroad tracks, parks, and kids enjoying themselves in the spray of water coming from a fire hydrant. The buildings changed in style, each telling their own unique architectural story. It seemed like the city embraced its dwellers, the way a mother demonstrates love for her child. My love for Chicago grew stronger by the day.